welcome back to another episode of Broken But Better podcast. I'm your lovely host, Mariah, and I'm super excited that you are here. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the family. If you are a new and returning viewer, thank you so much for spending a block back on your girl to see what I have in store. Today's episode is going to be an episode like no other. I have my very first guest, and I'm super excited for you to get to know her and hear more about her. So we're going to jump right into the episode. So we are sisters.
Cheetah girls.
We stand together.
Yeah.
All right. All right, y'all. So I got my dog in the building, the one and only, my sister.
Hi.
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, y'all. I'm Deja, Mariah's sister.
So I drug her along this episode because I really wanted to just kind of tap into us being sisters. But also just like our relationship. Like if anybody doesn't know, or if you do know us, I'll be all the time like, I don't have a best friend. I got my sister, and that's all that matters. But as we kind of just go through life and different transitions, I think it's good for us not only to see each other as sisters, but to see each other as women. So we're just going to kind of break down our highs and our lows just as sisters, and just also how God came into that. Like God is like the pivotal foundation of our friendship, not even our friendship, but just friendship also plays a part in us being sisters. So I'm gonna just kind of like jump us back to 2020 real quick.
Okay.
So to give y'all a little backstory, 2020, everybody know the pandemic sent everybody in haywire, and my sister was away at school at the time, the illustrious
Tennessee State University. Illustrious Tennessee State University.
And she ended up moving back home. She was like, "Hey, can I move back home?"
Did I ask?
I think she just thought like, "Oh, I'm moving in with my sister, and that's it. That's all." Like,
I think we talked about it before.
I think we talked about it, but it wasn't supposed to happen that early.
Right.
Like, because she wasn't graduating at the time. I think you were a senior at the time.
Yeah, it was my last semester.
It was your last semester, so I wasn't anticipating her at that moment. I thought I had time, because I just assumed too that she was gonna move back in with me when she moved back to Chicago. But we hadn't really talked about it in depth, and it just happened. Like, I thought I had time. And at that same time in my life, I also was transitioning from just like leaving my corporate America job and determining what else I was going to do. So it was just abrupt. Like, everything happened abrupt. But during that time, I think we had a lot of fun at the same time.
We did.
Like, we had a lot of fun. It was new. It was different for me because I was used to living by myself. So that was a big transition for me to have to now allow, because I thought I could do it like, oh, this is my sister. We've lived together before.
We shared a room together.
We shared a room together our whole life. But I think it really was like, oh, somebody living with me. Like, this is somewhat a responsibility because this is my younger sister. So what do I do? How do I act? And also just trying to be a good example at the same time. Like, yes, we knew each other, but I think we also was just like, we were away at school at the time. I think that was our first year apart, really.
2020?
Because I had moved back, I'm going to say 2019, 2020.
First year apart for real? Yeah.
No, I'll take that back. No, it wasn't. Because I was
school,
right.
so.
I was away at school and you was in high school.
Right.
So it wasn't like our first time being apart, but I think we were different.
Yeah.
Like, we were truly different people at the time. Like, I think I was able to hide certain things from her. She was able to hide certain things from me. Like, we were growing. So it wasn't like, oh, when I'm in high school, my mom would always be like, well, wherever you go, she got to go. So it was like a little bit different. She learning who she is. I'm learning who I am. So it was just different.
Yeah, we were more individuals at that point.
Yeah, we became
our own individual self. Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. Like, we were becoming individuals. That's really good, actually. And I think that 2020 kind of brought us back together and see how different we truly were. And then also how much we didn't know about each other in that year. Because we ain't had nothing else to do but sit in the house. Like, we weren't doing everything right, but we were, like, figuring it out.
Yeah.
So 2020, she moved back to Chicago. We ended up living together. And like I said, 2020 was fun.
It was fun, but we had our own, like, our lows too. Like the passing of Granny, all
for
that,
sure.
So. But it was fun for the most part. I mean, but we was in the house, so it was like we had to make the best out of it.
Yeah, and I think in 2020 it showed me how much I did need my sister. At the same time, I think roles were always, I felt like she needed me, but I didn't realize how much I needed her at the same time. Because in that year of me, like, also just being suffering depression in previous years, I can only imagine if I lived in 2020 by myself. Like, if I lived in my house by myself, what would that look like mentally, emotionally? I think it did force me to also dig deeper into God, because I wanted to be the best example for her. And I always I took that as a responsibility. Like, if anybody don't know, at the same time, this is my first child. So like, she don't like to hear that, but like, this literally was my first child. So it's just like, that's just how I felt. Like, I felt like this was my responsibility. And because I also realized too, like, she looked up to me. I don't want to disappoint her by leading her astray. So I got to make sure I got to get my life in order.
What song is that?
She don't follow Peach on YouTube. Anyways. But I felt like I just had to make sure that I was doing everything right, because I felt like this was a responsibility. If I'm doing something wrong, it leaves up room for her to do something wrong and not realize the consequences that come with it, or just anything. And I think that if you are an older sibling, I mean, I'm just going to say for me, I can't say that for everybody who may be an older sibling, but I felt like she was my responsibility. And not in a bad way, like, oh my God, I got this baggage. But even as a kid, like,
I was with you with your friends.
Like, where I went, she had to go. So I think that's probably what it is too that made me think I was responsible. You was my responsibility. Cause like, my mom was not like, oh, you need to make sure you stick up for your sister. If something happened, like, you got to answer to me. Like, if you were an older sibling, you kind of have that, like, if she get in trouble, where were you? Like, what happened that you weren't around? So I think 2020 did that. And I think it taught me to not look at her as a kid at the same time. Like, she's growing into a young adult, a young woman. And how do we coexist as sisters, but also as women?
Yeah. I think 2020 coming back home, it was definitely, like you said, abrupt, because I was at school. I was living my best life. I was doing what I wanted to do. And not that I couldn't do that when I came home, but also I didn't want my sister to be like, see me doing certain things that I wasn't most proud of. So it was just like, okay, I couldn't come home doing everything that I was doing in Nashville. So it was like, let me get myself together. Like, let me cover it up in a way, of a sense that you wouldn't see and be like, oh, because I know she was going to get on me if she found out about some things that I was doing. So it was just like, let me kind of hide some things from her so she won't see everything all at once. But I mean, at some point, you knew the whole time. Yeah. So it was just like, yeah.
And I think to that point, what I had to learn is also to respect her space, to be like, I'm not her mom.
Yeah.
Because that was a hard thing to do. Like, I don't want to be looked at as her mom. For her, I need her to still trust me as her sister, to be like, yes, my sister's going to give me realistic advice and tell me if I'm doing something wrong. But also, she doesn't want it to come off like, you my mama, and what I say goes, and if you don't like it, then you got to go. But it also, I had to learn that balance, because what I'm not going to do is lie to her and be like, oh, girl, we all dumb. Sometimes we all can do it. Like, yes, I get we sometimes need those moments, but do we at the same time? Like, or does she need to know the difference? Like, I'm your sister and I'm going to tell you the truth every time. Like, there is not going to be any sugarcoating and just going to allow you to get away with things, because I think too, I want the best for my sister and everything. So if a friend group not right for her, if a boyfriend not right from her, if a job situation, whatever that may be, but I also had to be like, Deja got to learn on her own. Yeah. And I think that was a struggle for me, to be like, my prayer used to be, God, don't let her go through it, but let me go through it so she don't have to go through it. And it made me think, like, why would I keep putting myself in warfare and she got to learn a lesson? Like, that's dumb. But that's just how much I wanted to protect her. Like, if I could go through it and she see me go through it and get through it, she gonna learn, like, she don't do it again. Like, but I realized I was taking on her battles and never allowing God to be God for her. And I think that God had to sit me down in a lot of ways and be like, you're getting in the way of me seeing her. Like, you're getting in the way of her seeing me, because you think you're playing God. Like, you're getting her out of situation. Not like bad situations, but just like, if I could prevent it from happening,
you would.
I would. Like, that was just easy for me to take the bullet than to see her hurt about something or to see her going through something. And I really had to realize now, looking back, is I made me being a sister an idol. Because I think, like how I've said in past episodes, an idol is anything you love more than your obedience to God. And I was like, I'll be there for her versus God, like, I need you to step out the way and let me do it. And I had to realize that. And also it made me realize, like, God will take something away. And it's like, what if he took it away, our relationship away? I would then be devastated. But what if I was the reason why he was taking that away, because I was getting in the way of that?
Yeah. So when I came back home in 2020, yes, it was an adjustment for you, but is it honestly something that you wanted to do? I mean, because you could have told me no and I could have went back home with our parents, but is that something that you really wanted to do?
I don't even think I thought about it as a want to do. I honestly thought it was something I had to do. Like, I didn't look at it as a choice, if I'm going to be completely honest. Did I think it would last that long? No, because I thought the pandemic was going to be over. Right. She was going to go back to school. I didn't think the pandemic was going to last a year. We having full-on graduation ceremonies in the house.
In the living room.
We went from one house to another house. Like, at that point, like, I really felt like it was a responsibility. Yeah. Like, all right, this apartment is not enough. I need to figure out how we can get into a bigger space. And I need to make sure that, like, literally felt like if I didn't do right by her, or that's just how I operate. Like, if I didn't do right by her, I was also setting her up for the best. Like, whether it be the neighborhood we living in, how are you going to get to work? And I'm working from home, or I'm not working at all. So it's not about me, or whatever the case may be. I was more of an afterthought in it. So I never really felt like, oh, I don't want her here. It was just like, oh, okay, it's not going to last for long. Right. Like, it's not. But as it lasted long, I was like, oh, all right now. Because I think now I'm adjusting to live with somebody longer than just when I wasn't. That I also was in a relationship at that time that is like, what am I showing my sister? Am I showing her a breakup to make up, or I'm breaking up with this person and I'm back with them? Like, what am I also respecting her space in the sense of like, does she want my significant other around, or is it making her feel uncomfortable? Like, I also had that balance of like, I want this to be her place of peace. Yeah. And I remember having that conversation with you, like, this is, even though it's my house, like, I don't like how growing up, like, my house, my rules. Yes, that is true. Like, I agree with that wholeheartedly. But I also was like, this is her place of peace at the same time. Like, everything else going on in the world. And she was an essential worker, too. So she was going to work.
I was at work every day, dealing with people in real time. I mean, that was a
going
big
to school.
Adjustment. Yeah, finishing school my last semester. I hated it finishing my last semester on school online. Didn't get a graduation. So that was a big, like, it was a big milestone that I'm like, I hate, not even hate, I don't even know if it's a regret, because I couldn't have nothing to do with it. But I just feel like I missed out on the opportunity, because that was such a big milestone of walking across the stage for graduation. But I mean, yeah, I was still had to work, still had to operate. So I mean, for me, it was like I moved here and it was like everything just kept going. It was just like a different environment. So it really didn't stop for me.
Right, because that's what she was doing at school, like going to work and going to school. But I just think that, like, I always wanted this to be her place of peace as well. Like, you going through a lot at work, you trying to go finish school, then you finish school, and now you're trying to go into your next career path. And graduating college and then trying to figure out life after is a huge transition. It is. And I had to do that by myself. Like, I didn't have anybody like, hey, Mariah, you can not do anything and try to figure it out. Like, I literally had to figure it out on my own. And I think that was one of the things, like, I didn't have an example, and I wanted to make sure that I was her example. Like, yes, we have an older brother, but like, there's an age gap, and my brother's grown at the time. He got kids, like, he got his own, we were different, like, boy and girl, like, we're different. That I just wanted to make sure that after her graduation, it wasn't a stress situation. Because that people could go into depression after graduating college of like, what do I do? Or I am working in my career path. Like, so it was more like, how do I help her? But I also was still kind of going through my own transition of like, trying to figure out my own, just navigating through different things. Like, I wasn't working. My relationship wasn't the best. I'm trying to get I'm trying to get out of a relationship, but I'm in a relationship. I'm trying to figure out the next job situation. I'm trying to get my relationship right with God. At the same time, our grandmother has passed. I'm trying to be the strong one. Like, it was just a lot. Like I said, 2020 was probably one of the best years, though, because it was one of my best years spiritually. Like, I felt like I had nobody else to go to but God, and I couldn't run. So because I couldn't run and we were in lockdown and I had to figure it out, and not necessarily figure it out, I feel like God gave me the space to just be. Like, I no longer had to rip and run. and try to do everything. It was just like, I'm going to figure this out for you. You could just rest here and not have to worry about a lot of different things as I was transitioning, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I want to go back to when you were saying, like, in 2020, you were kind of, like, in a depressive state in a way and hiding it from me. I didn't really, to say that I was able to point it out, no, because it was also, like, I was outside coming in, so I didn't know your whole dynamic. And I wouldn't say that I could see any signs of, like, any depressive states or anything. So for me, for you to, like, when we finally had our talk about it, to say it, I'm like, whoa, like, did I miss out or anything? Or did I miss the signs and not being there for you? So that was just something that was on my mind when I finally, like, when you finally opened up and said it, like, was I missing something? Like, did I not see the signs? So, but did you feel like you had to hide it from me, or did you feel like you didn't know how to express your feelings or how to go about it?
I think I did a good job of hiding it from everybody, if I'm going to be honest. Like, I think because I put up a persona of one way. Like, I needed to present myself as a strong person. Just, not just for you, but just for my certain relationships I was in. Because I don't think I didn't feel like, and this was just me in my mind, I didn't feel like people could handle me being depressed. Because I don't think people understood how bad it was for me. Because I also didn't realize how bad it was.
I mean, I could, not to cut you off, but I could sense it, like, when you were away in Nashville and we was both still there. Because it was just like, girl, you didn't want to be there no more.
I hated living there.
That was an empty apartment, literally just a bed.
Like, I literally lived in Nashville. Like, because you were in your last year.
I was in my second year. Your last year was my first year.
Right, so you was a sophomore, and I was just graduating college, and I hated living there. Like, when I tell you I didn't know whether it was sunny outside or not, like, it was to be the point how bad it was. Like, people were getting robbed, and I had no idea that they were being robbed. Like, every unit in my apartment thing got robbed except me. Like, that's how you know it was nothing but God, because I just was not paying attention to what was going on because I was so busy in my head. But to answer your question, I don't think I necessarily had to hide it from you. I just think I had to hide it from everybody. Like, I lived by myself. Nobody had to know. I could go outside and pretend. I can go to work and pretend. I could throw myself into things by saying yes to everybody and pretend. So I don't think it was just a you thing. I just think that it was just easy for me to hide. And I also didn't know how to put words to, like, oh, you're suffering from depression. And so I was like, let me get in therapy and really realize, because it was years. I was like, that I really was like, realized how depressed I was. I didn't even realize I was depressed then when I lived in Nashville. I just was sad. Like, I just was just like, oh, I'm just sad. And it just never kind of went away unless something new happened in my life that would be like, okay, this will help me get through it. Like, get a new job or moving to another state. Like, so it was just like many things like that. But I just think that it's just easy to hide.
Because you was by yourself.
I was by myself, and I also just like, well, what are they going to do about it? Like, what is crying going to do? Like, that's just kind of how I felt. But okay, let's fast forward to, I'm going to say a pivotal point in my spiritual walk that, I think that was 2021 at that point.
Yeah, because we was here.
Yeah, we moved here, and I'm going to say in 2021 is where I really was like, in 2020, I feel like God was just overwhelming me with his presence. But after a while, I feel like God was like, now you're going to have to act on this. Like, there is no just like, I'm going to be here and you don't do anything about it or do the work with it. And I feel like this is when my like walk with God had begun to get stronger. And I didn't really necessarily think how it was going to incorporate everybody. But I do know, I remember this very clearly, like, and you were there at that day. But in that same day, I remember making like what I felt like was a pact with God. Like, I'll do it how you want me to do it. Like, I'll live life how you want me to do it, but you got to promise to take care of my family. Like, I remember saying that subconsciously to myself, like, almost as if like God was right here, I was right here. And I was telling him like, okay, I'm going to do however you want me to do life, but you got to promise to take care of my family. I didn't really know what that meant at the same time, but I also was like, if you need me, you can have me, but then you got to take care of them. And when I mean take care of them, like, you got to make sure nothing happens to them. Like, this is how our real deal was. For like, I was having a talk with God, like, you got to make sure they straight. If I'm not here tomorrow, they got to be good. Because at the same time, I just think too, with like me dealing with depression, not saying that I cared if I lived or died, not in that sense, but I do feel like that's kind of how I felt. Like,
That's honest.
Like, if I'm here, I'm here. But if I'm not here, you got to make sure they good. Like, they can't hurt about it. They can't anything. And then if I am still here, I can't watch them hurt. So you got to do it. Like, and I feel like now knowing what I do know, it's so funny how God just kind of reworks everything, that I thought it was just on the outside. Like, I was going to work for him on the outside and he was going to take care of the inside type of thing. But he made it a way where everything kind of worked together. And I just felt like also that also just kind of heightened me to be like, I need to make sure I'm being a good example for my sister or just my family in general. And I remember one day going to like Bible study, and the preacher said, like, you can't make your family love your God. You could just be an example. And I had to feel like, I was like, God, I want to be a great example for them. Because it's frustrating that you're doing something to me and they're not getting it. They still live in their life a certain way, whatever the case may be. It's just like, all you can do is be an example, Mariah. All you got to do, she's seen me getting up at 4 a.m. going to prayer or going to Bible study every day or worshiping constantly, or I was really going through a spiritual change. And I think it's good that God allowed her to see it. Because now I look at us like, I'm Mary, sometimes she Elizabeth. Right. I'm Mary. And like the story about how Elizabeth was pregnant with something and Mary came, and she was also being pregnant with Jesus, and their babies leaped. The Holy Spirit leaped inside of them to be like, y'all supposed to do this together. Like, you encourage her, she encouraged you. And I think that it also allowed me to see the roles change of like, sometimes I do need her to encourage me because I don't have it. And then sometimes she need me to encourage her, like that back and forth, that just allowed me to also just see her grow as not my little sister anymore.
I'm glad that I also too got to see you worship, to see you going to Bible study, to see you in church environment. Because away at school, I did go to church, but I probably was just going just because it was out of routine, out of habit, because that's what we did as kids. But not to know, like, I'm going for myself. I'm going for a relationship with God, an active relationship with God. So seeing, like, especially with worship, like, we didn't really see worship like that in the house of, like, going in, like, listening to our music or, like, just out open with, like, praying or whatever. So I think that did kind of definitely give me an example of what it looks like. And then also not to mimic, but to have my own relationship, to have my own, like, experience and spiritual encounters with God. So that is something that I've always told you that I always admire your relationship with God, because it's just so pure and so intentional, so personable, that I've always admired. So it's just like, if I see it with you, then I would want that same thing. Like, I have that desire to have that same relationship with him too. So I've always, like, been appreciative to get a seat, or just to, like, see how you operate with God and your relationship with God. Like a glimpse, not to say I know all of it into its entity, but just to see, like, a glimpse of your relationship with God that will just kind of want me to have that same, like, encounters too.
Right. Yeah. And I think too of just like in that middle of like me also having to be, that also was me being an example, but I also feel like that was a God-led example. Like, I couldn't say, you need to get up and go to church with me, and you need to open up your Bible and we gonna do Bible study together. Like, it was like, I can do it, and then when she wants to, it's invited in. I could be an example, and then she be invited in based off me being an example, because I'm also learning. Like, I don't have all the answers, and I'm now in this year of 2021 and also 2022 going through different transitions. Like, I think me overcoming addiction at the time of like, okay, I'm gonna stop smoking, and maybe she may not. I'm gonna stop smoking, and maybe she may not. I can't say you need to stop doing this, but let me be an example. But I also like, let me not be a hypocrite at the same time and condemn somebody for something I'm also overcoming. And that was hard too. Like, I'm stopped smoking, but she's still smoking. Like, how do I not be like creeping up into like, oh, I want to do that, but I had to set boundaries. Like, hey, you can't do that around me no more. Or also just in relationships, like, people not understanding that, like, no, you can't come in and out of my house. Like, I got a sister, I have an example that I need to make, and no, we're not gonna keep breaking up and get back together. Like, those different things, because I realized if I did it, it would make it okay for her to feel like she could do it. But as I'm more in my word, my also desire for certain things are changing. And I could share it with her and be like, I read the Bible, or I'm learning this, and I don't think I should do that anymore. I can expose her to it and allow her to make the decision, like, you know what, why, Mariah? Why you don't feel like you should do that? And then eventually, if God convicts her, the same God that got me, maybe he'll do it to her. But then I also had to realize, Mariah, what he tells you, he may never tell her to stop doing. Whatever that may be, whether it was smoking, whether it was eating at a certain restaurant, or, for example, going to a certain nail tech. Like, if God gives me a download to say, I can trust you with her, to be like, I'm going to give you something. And I don't know, you may not know the reason why all the time, but I'm actually going to use the example. So, like, there was this nail tech that we were going to at one point in time, and the Holy Spirit clearly was like, you need to stop going to her. And I was just like, why though? Like, I don't really see the issue. And I toyed with the idea for a minute before I even told her, because it's like, I needed you to give me a why. And I also didn't feel like God gave me the why. It was more so, I just need you to be obedient. So I was obedient and I stopped going, but at the same time I was tempted, because she was still going like, man, your nails fire. I'm over here bare nails, and if anybody know me, like, I need my to keep my nails in. Like, that's my thing. And I couldn't really explain to her why. Like, what God wouldn't give me to be like, you need to tell her why. It was just like, you need to do it. So
I asked you why.
I did
ask you why. And he's like, oh, I just don't want to go there. I'm like, okay, like, I just kind of left it alone. I didn't, like, inquire or whatever. Right. But it also, I did, like, put it in the back of my head, like, like, what am I missing? Like, did I not see a sign or something of why? I mean, is it really because she just don't want to go to her? Or, like, is there something deeper? And, I mean, I stopped going to her for my own reasons, because I didn't like how she she operated. But it did make me think, like, what's going on? Like, did something happen? Like, what?
Yeah. So she did maybe ask, and I just don't remember, but I wasn't compelled to tell her my why of like, well, God told me not to go. Because what I don't want to do is like everything so spooky and just overly spiritual. Just like, maybe that's what God told me and he didn't tell her that. Yeah. But then after a while, it came out in the wash, as they say. Like, older people say, like, it came out in the wash. Okay. It came out in the wash of why, like, it was just like she was into some things that I just didn't agree with. But it just, those little examples like that, it was like certain things I can't say no, and she'd be like, okay, cool. But I'm also not God. I have to let God be God for her and be like, hey, I just don't think this is a good idea. And she take it into consideration, and she do, she don't. But I just think, like, even also just spiritually of, like, being the best example I could be. That I always say, like, and I think we had a moment like that where one thing my prayer has been, like, as I just grow spiritually more and more, is that God, let her see why at times. Like, I want her to get into her 30s and be like, I seen my sister go through this, and I know that God did this for her. He could do the same for me. Like, for example, serving. I want her to be, like, able to see, my sister got up and served even when she didn't feel like it. Not to say that I need you to do that, but I need you to have that same mindset as you going through dental school. Like, even when I don't feel like it, God is equipping me to do something even when I don't understand it. I want you to be able to apply that to everything. Like, when you're going through tough times of, like, I've seen somebody do it, I could do it. Right. And I think that sometimes we suffer in our generation is because we hear a lot of people say, well, if somebody would have told me back in my day, I wouldn't do that. But did you see it? It's easier for somebody to say, if you would have told me this, I wouldn't be going through the same thing. That's not true. Because sometimes people need to see it and then they'll get through it. Like, you can talk to you blue in the face, but when times get tough and she living in another state or I'm living in another state, I've started a family and she's still living her best life or going to dental school, I feel like having concrete evidence that the Holy Spirit will bring it back up to remembrance, and like, if she did it, I could do it. Yeah. If we don't see a lot of examples, and I think that's one of the things that people like, oh, you don't mind. I don't have an older sister, so it was just like, I didn't have the examples. I was my own example to do a lot of things in my family as first, that it was just like, if I had, not to say if I had an example, because I don't really think about like, oh, I wish I had a big sister to show me, like, that don't really get to me in that sense. But I think it helps now looking at other people, like, that could be beneficial to other young girls if they just seen somebody else. And you seen it without me having to tell you, if that makes sense.
I think even it was the same with smoking. Like, you stopped and I was continuing going, but I mean, at one point it was just like, it wasn't hitting the same. Right?
I don't have anybody to do it.
No, not even not having anybody to do it, because I don't care. That's what I didn't care about having someone to do with it. I'm just saying, like, the high that I was chasing, it wasn't the same anymore. Enough. It wasn't like, okay, like, it's at the point where I'm buying it, and why am I sitting here still the same? Like, am I not hitting it right? What? So it was just at that point, it was just like something that just happened without me even having to think about it. I was just like, I've just decided not to smoke no more, and I just haven't since. Like, it was just, I didn't have the desire, and I think seeing you do it, not like seeing you give it up in a way that you knew it wasn't beneficial, and knew you didn't spiritually align with you anymore, it just had me think like, okay, what path is she going down? I don't want to be stranded or by myself in a way of on my own, like not even like on my own bad path, but just saying like, what am I missing? Like, what is it that she's showing me, unintentionally showing me, leading by example that I'm not seeing? And it just like had me think like, okay, like maybe I shouldn't be doing. Like, it had me think like, and then we go into the Bible of saying like being like sober minded and all that. So it's just like, okay, I see why it's not okay for us to continue to do it. And it's just like, I just stopped. Like, it wasn't a hard thing for me to do. It was just, I didn't want to do it no more. And that was, and I do appreciate, like, I follow your example in a way that you may not even know, like, that I am. So it's like, yes, you are a good example, and I appreciate that. But also, like, I pay attention, like, oh, she's not doing something like this. Not to say I'm following you.
Of course.
But I'm aware of how you're operating, and I want to make sure that I'm doing the same, like, you know, to be on the same page with everything.
And I think that just goes like, if you don't have a sister but you have friends, like, okay, what it should intrigue you to be like, not to your point, not following, but like, God, let me self-examine myself. Because if I'm gonna keep being around this person, I don't want to be around somebody that's not gonna force me to change or require me to change. And for you to be like, hey, it made you change. Her being around made me say I have to be better. So it wasn't of like no longer me putting on a show. I can't hide this anymore. So now I got to get rid of this, because if I want to be this person that she looks up to or an example, I have to be the example. Like, I can't just be like, and that's one thing. It was just like, if I'm gonna be honest, my pride of like, I can't have her call me out, so I got to fix it. If that makes sense.
But even then though, I feel like I encouraged it when I came home. I mean, you said that that's something that you already started, but I feel like I encouraged it when I came home.
What?
Like, as far as smoking. I mean, yes, the pandemic did it because we had nothing else to do, but also it's just like, I feel like that's something that I encourage.
But I also don't think, knowingly. But I also encourage it too. Like, if we were before, because I didn't even know she was a smoker. Like, baby, because I wasn't. Like, I didn't smoke. So it's just like, you smoke? Like, what? Like, what? Who is this? Like, but I think that was just a previous, I'm just saying anything that required me to be like, she's around, I cannot slack. I can't be just anybody to her. Like, I felt like this was a responsibility. Like, and that was a reflection of me, because, or us being a reflection of each other. Like, oh, your sister out here wilding? That means I'm wilding. So I'm not, something in me. But also just like that, I think God had to check me on is just like pride, in the sense of like, I don't want her to call me out like, well, you doing it, so I could do it. Like, whoa. Because in my mind, it's like, I can't.
I don't think I would ever do that. Like, call you out and be
that's pride, though. That's what I'm saying. For me, that was pride. You may not do that, but I think at the same time, my ego wouldn't allow me to be like, oh, well, no. Like, in my mind, that status of like, I'm the older sister, you can't call me out. But if order to avoid that, it required me to work better, to be better. And I think that's God's saving grace, because I had to check myself like that in a lot of relationships, whether it be friendships or parent relationships or boyfriend relationships, of like, I don't want people to see me a certain way, so it requires me to be better. But God had to check me like, that's your pride. Yes, I'm gonna, what you thought was one way was really pushing me closer to you, God. Like, so it just made me check myself in that sense of like, okay, cool. But also at the same time, she don't know I'm praying over her daily. Like, you going to work, baby, your room flooded in oil. Like, but because it's like, you think that I'm not going to tell you, hey, you need to stop smoking and you need to stop doing this. But I'm praying, I'm interceding, because it's like, God, I struggled with stop smoking. I don't want that to be a struggle for her. And God, it was more so that going back to like, I would be bringing up to God, okay, you told me I don't want to stop smoking, but because you told me, God, I need to. So I need you to make it easier for her. Don't let her suffer how I'm suffering of like, man, I really want to do the temptation of it all. And that could be in anything, whether it be in relationships. God, I don't want her to see me break up to make up, and her to think it's okay to keep doing that. Like, it gotta stop. Even just graduating college, like, baby, I wanted to give up and be like, I'm moving back home, but I was like, I got an example, like, and I think that was a important part too, because that was our first time really being away.
School, oh, my friend is gone. What am I gonna do?
Yeah, that was our first time. It was like our first time really being away is when I was at school, because I was in college and she was still in high school, and like
just starting high school. I was a sophomore when you was leaving.
Yeah, so she was just starting high school.
Year. My first year of high school was your last year of high school.
Yeah. So I think that was, and also I think too, that's where the enemy tries to seep in, and just in general, that could have been the start of it that I didn't pay attention to, because I'm like, I'm going away to school and I got to be the first in my family to do it. Whatever the case may be, I didn't realize how much of an impact it had on her. And then also, like, when I would come home and I'm not hanging out with her, baby had attitude.
Because she wasn't answering my phone calls when I'm calling me in school. Like, what are you doing? Like, I'm calling you to tell you something, and what are you doing?
But that's when my depression started the most too. And I was like, I'm not in a good day. I'm not going to talk to her, type of thing. Because I was homesick, and what I thought was homesick was really depression. But then, like I said, the spiritual part of it all, I think, kind of clicked for you to be like, okay, my sister is serious about this. Is, I think, just as of this year, like, she came to me like, I see why you do what you do, or I see why God has called you to do X, Y, and Z. Like, the different transitions of me having to sacrifice a lot of like just little things, like being able to see it. To me, it was like, okay, it paid off. Like, God, thank you for allowing her to see it, because I think we could have bumped heads of like, all right, you gotta go because you're not getting it, and X, Y, and Z of like.
Did you want to put me out one time? I feel like we, especially growing up, like, we argued like crazy as kids, but I
don't think so.
We used to argue about the stupid stuff, like, why are we having scheduled days to watch TV?
But that's just like kiddie stuff. I feel like we wasn't like arguing now, like now we don't really argue at all. As kids, I just feel like we got on each other's nerves.
Yeah, but that's just crazy to see. Like, we used to have scheduled days for TV.
Yeah,
and now it's like, girl, what
we watching together? Like, what you doing in your room? You too quiet in there. I don't think I've ever wanted to kick you out, but have I been at like a breaking point of like, But I think it was a me thing, not necessarily her, because I think it goes back to people pleasing. I didn't want to lose our relationship, and I feel like I allowed the enemy to get in my head, like, well, if you tell her about herself, then she gonna be mad and want to go, whatever the case like that, because I really didn't.
Where's I gonna go?
But I didn't want her to struggle with so many things. So just like, if I can prevent it, cool. But like, I also think, I know my sister at the same time. Deja need reminders, okay? I'm gonna be honest.
Reminders about what?
You have to stay on top of Deja, because if you don't, Deja likes to be like, I'm an adult, but also I'm a little sister.
Okay.
Like, she know my sister gonna help me, or like that. I think that it makes her comfortable, and I feel like I have to say no to make her uncomfortable to figure it out on her own. Yeah. And I take ownership of that. Like, people always say, you babied her. I always did do everything for her. Like, she can't find something, fine, I'll do it. Like, or, like, whatever it may be, I was always an escape. Like, for whatever it may be. You away at school your freshman year, you spend it, girl, we don't have no money. Where you think every day you spending money? Hey, Mariah, I just gave you money yesterday. What are you doing? Like, what are you doing?
To eat.
What are you doing? But it was just like, I'm not teaching her responsibility of like, if I gotta learn responsibility and sacrifice, so do she. That I think that in our time being here, it also had to make me like, okay, you woman to woman now. You can't go live with nobody else and think that you could just do whatever you want to do. Like, it forced me to have, once again, God is forcing me to have difficult conversations and be okay with if she's mad about it. Like, she'll get over it, but the enemy will play tricks in my head. Like, but if I had this difficult conversation, then, but also me having to be like, I'm not not your mom. We're gonna be friends in this. We sisters. We, women, like all of these different things. Like, it was I was playing different roles. I feel like at sometimes that it's like not necessarily kick out, but it was just like, okay, this is a difficult conversation that I need to have, and be okay if she don't receive it the way I want her to receive it. Give her time to adjust to it. So it was a learning thing for me as well. And don't get me wrong, like I'd be like, man, I can't wait to live by myself again. But the freedom of it, that I encourage her, like, you need to experience that one time. Like encouraging her to like, Deja, because also think about it, if I'm doing negative things, if I want positive things to impact her, imagine the negative things I'm doing, such as people pleasing. Am I not setting an example that when you go to corporate world, you can speak up for yourself? Right. You know what I mean? Like, because you've seen me do it, and that's comfort. Like, but also stuff she had to call me out on and be like, all right, Mariah, this is not cool. And be open to that as well, because I'm worried about me telling her something bad. What if she got to tell me something that's offending her and making her not feel well? Like, I need to make sure that my emotions are not getting the best of me, that she can't come to me as well.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I could say now, I mean, we've got our boundaries of how we operate in our home or whatever, but I mean, you definitely did encourage me to move on my own. Like, that's going to be a new step for me, and it's just, in my head, it's like, man, like, it is comforting that you're around, because I know, like, you got me. You know that I'm going to make sure, you're going to make sure that I'm good.
Right.
But I think it is something that needs to happen, because I feel like moving back home, I did become comfortable. I did become like, okay, like, I don't have to do much, because I know, like, it's going to get taken care of regardless. So I think the next step for me, for both of us, is going to individual as far as, like, moving on our own. So, yeah.
And I think that just shows us growing as women as well. That is just, like, that's one thing that I do have to realize as well. Is, like, we're going to always be sisters.
Yeah.
But she going to have a husband. She going to have kids. I'm going to have a husband. I'm going to have kids. That we now... that third party coming in can also make us grow even more, that we may be like, oh, this is a different version of my sister that I didn't even know is there. Because we give each other one version, but then when we date in, we give that person a different version as well. They'll be like, I ain't never think this was going to happen. Or you said you would never do this. Like, you know what I mean? That it's just like, but you may change for that person and you become a mom. And now I have to look at you as a mom and not just my sister. Or I have to look at you as a dentist and not just my sister. Like, we evolve, and we're going to show up different versions of ourselves, but having that respect to be like, okay, I have to respect her now in this new life. This is not my little sister that I could just tell her, I don't think you should be doing that. Like, well, Mariah, like, she got a whole husband, she got kids, like, who do you think you are? Because I think some families show up like that. Well, my sister I'm her sister, so...
some type of entitlement.
Right, some type of entitlement, like, I have to let her grow and make decisions and have the right maturity that if she does make a bad decision, she can come to me and say, hey, I did this. And I'm not going to be like, well, I told you so. If you would have did it my way, you wouldn't. Like, who am I? You know, that I do think prayer has really helped us a lot. God has to be the true foundation in our relationship, because it really shows up in other relationships as well. Like, you can't just... God has to be the center of every relationship that you're in. Just because it's familiar don't mean I don't invite God in, that I have a manual to be like, oh, I got this one, God. I don't need you. If anything, I need you more, because we are familiar with each other. I need you more to be like, how, Holy Spirit, she not having a good day today. How do I react with her? Because when she get hungry, that's another story for another day. But I'm just saying, like, I had to lean on the Holy Spirit to be like, okay, how does she need to be?
You really just tried me.
But no, like, I really had to do that, because I'm more so be like, she not talking something wrong. Versus like, Mariah, maybe it's nothing that you did. Maybe she's just having a bad day. And because we're living in one space, how does that operate? But also, let's not take out outside problems on each other.
I think that's a good point too, because I do try to take that in consideration. I mean, to know that I could be like a quiet person, but when I'm too quiet, then it's like, okay, either I'm in my head thinking about something, or I'm just like, I don't want to talk today. Like, that's not what I want to do. And I think I do try to take that into consideration, because for me, I work with people all day. Like, I'm actually interaction with people all day. And for you interact with people, but it's not in a face-to-face. Like, it's not on the same thing. So it's like, some days I don't want to come home and talk. Like, my social battery is done. Like, I don't want to talk. I don't want to have a conversation. But I try not to come home and be like, I don't want to talk. Like, no, let me ask about your day. Because I do appreciate that. Like, we do ask about each other day. Like, or good morning, good night. Like, that's just something that we always do or have done. So I do like, okay, let me actually hear about her day. Because, I mean, she may need that outlet, too. To be like, girl, something happened to me. And then I may need that, too. So it's like, I try not to just be like, I don't want to talk. Like, dismiss you or your feelings. Like, no, I try to be considerate because, I mean, you do the same thing for me. Like, maybe you don't want to talk and I'm talking, but we all know you can be chatty patty sometimes and not be going to sleep on you. But I do try to be like, okay, like, no, let me check on her. Like, that is my way of, like, making sure you good, like, checking on you. Because I know and sometimes I come home, you like, I know, like, you had a bad day or, like, you want to talk about it or, like, let's go do something, like, just to get out of the house. Like, I could sense it. I'm sure you could sense it in me, too. So that is something that I just always, like, keep in my mind, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we did have to learn, too, is that I think we are each other's first best friend. And I think we've gotten comfortable with that. So just meeting new people sometimes could be, I wouldn't say it's hard, but I think for me, it is. I really don't need it because I have a sister, if I'm going to be honest. Like, and somebody had to tell me that, like, you have a cutoff game of, like, I don't really need this friendship because I got my sister. But then what I failed to realize as I grow that it's not that I can't tell my sister everything, but when we get on each other's nerves, it's like, well, who am I going to go vent to? Or maybe I need a different perspective. That is not necessarily of like, oh, I can't come to my sister, but maybe I need a different perspective. Or just we need different friends that I think that I've learned that as well, that she's always going to be my first best friend. So, like, she's always been my first best friend. So I think I know that'll never change. But it has also, as I get older, as we do have an age difference, 4 years age difference? We do have an age difference that our lives are going to be separate at one point. Like, our focus.
Hang it up on me.
Yeah, like, my focus is going to be different, that we're going to like some of the same things, but we're going to do a lot of the different things as well. Like, she's moving away to another state at some point. I don't want her to just, it'll be selfish for me to be like, you're my only friend. So it's like also building new friendships could be difficult.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely adjustment for me because it's like, in a way I'm thinking selfishly like, oh no, this person is taking my best friend away. But also it's just like, she does need different perspectives. She does need her own group. That's her individuality. And for me, it's the same way as finding my own individuality too. But it was an adjustment, especially younger me. It was an adjustment because it's like, no, I got an attitude because where you going without me?
Right.
But now I understand, it's a mature version of me. I understand that it is necessary to have your own friend group and your own circle. So now I'm like, yeah, let's bring a little more the merrier. Like, go out, girl. And I think, too, I also have my guard up when new people do come in because I'm like, who are you and why are you trying to go to my sister? Because if you want to go, let's go. Like, I'm definitely on go when it comes to her because it's like I'm always... the way she protects me, I want to protect her in the same way. And it's just like with new people, not too much. Like, so I do have that, but also it's just like I want the right people around her because it's somebody that I value, that I know that she's a valuable person. So I just don't want her to allow anyone to come in her circle and her way and just kind of like deter her from what she has going on, which you don't. Right. I'm just saying, like, that's just how I think about it. But I do want to be invited for new people to come in. Like, yes, go out with my sister. Like, I want her to be happy. I want her to enjoy her life. So it's now I do understand the reasoning for having your own friend group.
I think, same of like, that person may not be for you. Because I think we sometimes see what they don't see. And it's not even just friendship. It could be dating as well. Like, I think when my sister first started dating again, it was just like, what you got going on? Like, you know, are you going to be a distraction to her? Like, what is that going to look like? And also having to be okay with, and I think you said, I got to respect your decision. But I think there's a fine line of, I don't want to say there's a fine line because I'm going to step in and be like, hey, you slacking. I know you having fun and you in love or you got these friends, but you got a purpose still that you need to stay focused on, that even they're going to fit or they're not going to fit. Right. If this friendship or relationship is going to take you away from God, that's not the friendship for you. And sometimes I've heard it like this before, our love will blind our discernment. Because love is blind. How people say love is blind, but our discernment for people will be blinded if we truly love them or we have feelings for that person. That is just like, hold on. I get this your friend, but this doesn't, it's a one-way street.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? And having to be okay with, like, sometimes people are attracted to your gift and not attracted to you.
Right.
So what does that mean? Are you only going to take from me and never going to give? Are you only going to only use me when it's convenient? Whatever the case may be. And we have to be careful of that. But I also think that us being friends first has taught me how I show up to other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all right, Mariah, you could be a little bit of this. If she see it, then somebody else gonna be able to see it. And then just also being 100% myself, that I think I had to learn. I could be 100% myself with her, but then I get around other people. It's just like, this isn't fun. They don't get
our jokes.
Like,
they don't get our insight.
This isn't fun. Like, yeah. Man, y'all suck. Like, I can't. Y'all gonna, you know what I mean? That it's just like, I'm not being 100% myself. And that's just something that I have to learn of, like, finding people that I could be 100% myself. Mm-hmm. Like, sometimes it'd be like, can I just clone her? And then that'd be, that's just a different person.
Yeah.
But it also has always been that I had to learn, growing up, my friends were her friends. Mm-hmm. So to be honest, you didn't really have to make friends. Like,
I didn't really have many friends. I mean, I had my circle, but also just like, I also had your set of friends too, so it's just like, if y'all don't want to hang out, I'm going with my sister and her friends. Yeah.
And it just came, like, some of my current friends be like, oh, Deja did it out. Like, when did you talk to my sister? Like, when did, you know what I mean? That it just was like, I think that you didn't have to go out and, like, you made friends of your own, but you didn't have to. Like, my friends were, and even like that now, like, a lot of my friends will check up on her and be like, hey, what you doing, da-da-da. And I'm okay with that, but I think also just, like, pushing her out of her comfort zone to be like, you have to, because we are comfortable. Mm-hmm. Like, we are comfortable to be like, oh, what you doing? And whatever the case may be, that I think even now as we've gotten older and we separate, I think we will separate living on our own or going to different states and doing our own things. It's still going to be like, we on the phone on the way to the event the entire time.
For sure.
Like,
I'm talking to you while I'm putting my clothes in the washer.
Right. Like, we in a store, like, does this look right? Like, I know that that's just how it works for me. Yeah. But I can also be like, she needs space, I need space. Mm-hmm. Like, I can call her like, Mommy get on my nerves, she got on your nerves. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we have that still, that relationship that we will always have. And I think that at some point in our life, we may have taken it for granted. Yeah. We have. I'm going to say I have. Like, I know I have taken it for granted. Seeing other people like, man, y'all have a really good relationship, or because what we won't allow is people to come in between.
Yeah, no, I don't think we've
never experienced that.
No.
But I think it's okay to be aware of it, because when we do get in relationships or marriage, it can happen. Yeah. It can happen to the point, because we've seen it in our own family, in our own like situation, that it can happen. That I think what we don't realize that we're addressing now is healthy enough for us to go to the next season in our lives. We think that, oh, this is just nothing, but I know that it's preparing us to be like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to do this. Or there's boundaries, because there are boundaries that you have to follow, that I'm not going to just do certain things because, like, I got to respect her. Yeah. So I think it's very much so preparing us as we continue going womanhood and motherhood and being a wife, or just being a friend to people, that there are boundaries, and this is just part of the practice. I think us living together for the last, 4+ years?
4? What years is
this makes 4 years. Yeah. Us living together.
Wow, 4 years.
That's a long time.
That is a long time.
Like, we've seen so many different transitions of ourselves, and and it happened fast. If I really think about it, like, it's happened really fast. I think it's nothing but preparation, that we needed this to grow, to get back to knowing each other again and seeing each other in different lenses and through different lenses. Yeah. I think has been super helpful. And like I said, I have taken it for granted, and it has made me go back and, like, I'm thankful, not just for my sister, but for my brother as well. Like, we have a really good relationship as well. Like, we're all really close. Yeah. And I think that it has made me be more grateful. Like, God, I thank you for my siblings. I thank you that we can have a close relationship. We can raise our kids together. We can raise our family together. Because if it was up to my brother, we will all live next door to each other. That's crazy, dog. Crazy. But that's just how, like, I'm grateful for that. Yeah. And I just see the favor of God, and that he has given me a partner, a best friend, and, like, we each other examples at times. So I can't say, like, oh, I don't have an older sister, I don't have an example. Like, I have an example. It may look different than other people, and vice versa. That I'm excited for, like, our next 5 years. I'm excited to see you as a mom. I'm excited to see you as a dentist. Like, just different things that is just like we continue to push each other. And
yeah, I mean, I always feel like, I don't know if they say we always just to live in a bubble, because when I go on the outside and see people like, oh, you don't like your sister, or you don't like
how
your
could
brother,
you not like
what
yeah
what are you talking about? Like, how could you not? I don't know. And I does come from how we were raised, because mommy wasn't playing that. Like, she was like, we friends first in the house, don't go outside acting up like that. So that is like something that's just like, whoa, like a shock to hear other people say like they don't have a good relationship with their siblings, and especially with sister. I feel like your sister, why wouldn't that be your best friend? Like, it's your sister. There was never any competition, there was never any jealousy between us. So it was just like, to hear that is like, whoa. But also on the other hand, to hear lately, I feel like I've been hearing like so much of how people would be watching us and be in admiration of us in our relationship. I'm like,
this is normal.
Why wouldn't it be like that? Like, what would you think? But I also think that that's an example of us. Like, we are an example to other siblings and other sisters. And it's just like, I didn't think about it that way, of how we operate and how we're viewed is a way that people are like, oh, they look up to us in a way. And I'm just like, I never really paid attention to that. I feel like lately I've been hearing like, oh my God, like, I love you guys' relationship. Like, I've always admired. I'm like, oh, thanks. Like, that's just my sister. Like, ain't nothing to it. But lately I feel like that's just been coming more and more to my attention, of how much people admire our relationship. And it just also put into perspective that we are also role models for other siblings too. So yeah. Yeah.
Like I said, this, we Mary and Elizabeth, and this, like, every dream that God has given me, if it happens for me, it's gonna happen for her. Like, when I go up, she go up. When she go up, I go up. Like, baby, I can't wait till she becomes a dentist. Like, you're gonna buy me a car. I love it. It's gonna be sitting in the driveway. But it's just like,
not a free teeth cleaning in a car.
Gosh. Right? Like, I can get a free teeth cleaning now. Why would I wait until, girl, beat it? Like, I'm gonna have so many different things. Do you know how many things? The things that I've given her. Baby, I'm gonna have the things, right?
Okay.
But and she thinks, she rolling her eyes like, no, baby, I'm gonna be first in line, okay? But I do think that that's just kind of something that I live by now, that when it doesn't look like it, I have to remind myself that, like, no, we're gonna be Mary and Elizabeth. Like, some days I'm gonna be Mary, some days she's gonna be Elizabeth, some days she's gonna be Mary, I'm gonna be Elizabeth. Like, that's just I feel like the promise that God has given me, to say that's who we're gonna be. Like, that is who we are. And I'm gonna encourage her, she gonna encourage me. When my baby leap, her baby gonna leap. When my dream leap, her dream gonna leap. Like, that is what I stand on. So when we not getting along, or we are getting on each other's nerves, or it seems like we're not closer to our goals for each other, that's what I have to go back to prayer and God, to be like, God, remember you showed me this, or remember you told me this. And that's how it's like, all right, boom, y'all just going through a patch, y'all gonna get back at it, or whatever the case may be. That's my encouragement. And just still learning. Like, I'm still learning who I am. It doesn't stop. But I think what brings me joy is like, now I'm comfortable with myself. Like, I'm doing the right thing. I no longer have that pressure of like, oh, Mariah, this is your responsibility. Like, I no longer feel like I can't mess up. I no longer feel like that, because I also feel like it's bigger than me. I also feel like the same God, if God is working on me, what makes you think he's not working on her? Like, he's omnipotent, he's omnipresent. That if he's doing it to me, I have to trust him that he's also going to do it for her. Yeah. Because sometimes God will show me up like, I don't need you to say nothing, Mariah. I don't need you to say if this wrong or this right. Let me do the work in her. And then she'll come to me and be like, man, I shouldn't have did that. And I'm cracking up in my head like, like, you don't know what I prayed for. You don't know what God has shut me up from. Whatever the case may be, that is just like, I've learned to let God be God for her in her life. Like, she serves God, I serve God. The same God that's working in me also is the same God that's working in her. And I have to trust her with him. Like, that's hard to say, but I think that's, and not even hard, I think it's maybe stupid to say, of like, well, you had to trust God with her. It's almost like I had to give, like, God, here you go. Yeah. Like, she's not mine. Here you go. Do as you please. And it has freed me up to not be restless night thinking like, oh my God, da da da. Like, it's freed me up to be like, okay, I trust that God, you're going to work it out. And if I don't, maybe I got it wrong. And maybe what she doing what is right and I think is wrong. Correct me. Fix me, God. Help me to see something that I don't see, that I think that prayer will do a lot of the a lot of the healing to what you think. I'm gonna say prayer will give you the answer to what you think that you can control. Like I literally, it's been days where I was just like, I'm gonna pray about it, and in that me praying for you to correct her, if there's something in me that I need to be corrected because I'm not seeing it right, check me first. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what I've had to learn is, you think it's just her. No, check you first. Yeah. Check me. And God has had to check me a couple of times. Not a lot of times be like, no, it's a you thing. It's not her. So let me do it. Because what I don't want to do is be embarrassed. Like, you don't do that. And it was really a me thing that God allows me. I'm going to check you first. And if this is something that I release you to say, go ahead and do it. Yeah. Or because I think we see things in each other that we don't see in ourselves. Whether it be good or bad, that God allows us to go in and just make that change. Make that correction.
What's your favorite moment with us? Like,
favorite moment is crazy.
I feel like I can't even. I'm asking, but I'm trying to really think like my favorite moment.
I think we got a lot of favorite moments. Like Houston was a time.
Yeah. No, that ain't on my list though.
It's not. But we had fun.
We did.
Like that was a fun trip. We had a lot of fun. Like Houston, that ain't really like even. It was like a funny thing. Yeah. Like an insider. We had to laugh. We had to laugh through it. Our
insiders is probably my favorite thing.
Yeah, our insiders. And that's an everyday thing. So it's not like a moment. Like that's an everyday thing. Yeah. Like she can walk in the house and say something like, "Where did I get that from? Where that movie is this from?"
You gotta know my movies.
Like that's one thing. Like the movies, the random songs. Like flash. One thing probably I would say is my favorite moment that now makes sense. Like, I don't know if y'all ever did this when y'all was a kid, but like, we used to play a lot as like with Dow's. Yeah. Like, I mean, I played with Dow's for so long because she was still playing with Dow's. Like, or not even that. Like, we would come home and play church.
Yeah. That was your favorite moment?
I think in the sense of now looking at it now, like to see.
Because I would say one of my favorite moments is us going to church together.
So okay, that's good. Yeah. I think that us being little kids and playing church, like I was the preacher and she would fall out and then we would just switch roles. Like, I don't know if other people did that, like, or she would catch the Holy Ghost. I would like, or we would play like that. But I think it's just funny to see it now, how like God was in that the entire time to be like, oh, now that's kind of what y'all, this y'all for real life. Like she goes with me when I have certain speaking engagements or like just her pushing me to do the podcast of like, oh, I'm not ready. And she like, no, release it now. Like, drop it now. Like, I just think that, like, it's just funny how God works. Of what we think we was playing, God was like, no, I was really in that. Like, she would literally have on, like, the Barbie heels.
We had a good imagination as kids.
We had a really good,
I think a good childhood.
We had a good childhood of, like, playing. It was just us two. It wasn't like, oh, we have a lot of friends coming over. Like, we wasn't nobody on the block, our
neighbors, cousins.
I think I had people on the block that I was playing with, like, older kids. Yeah. But it wasn't like...
It was us, right? We used to tie our baby down to our bike and act like we waited at the bus stop.
Like, why would we do that? That's ghetto. Like,
outside in the rain, that's in mud.
Ghetto. Like,
why was that okay?
Why was that okay? That's just... The mindset is backwards. That's environment, too. Like, we thought that was cool to be playing, like, in our backyard.
With a baby down.
Like, we was on a bus stop. There was never a bus.
We at the end of the driveway.
Like, baby, God is good. We didn't, because we don't have no babies. We not standing at no bus stop. God is good. Yeah, like, we did have a good imagination as kids playing, like, just doing stuff. Like, we had a beauty shop. We had everything. Concerts, like, anything that you can downstairs for hours. Like,
summertime, we never
went to sleep. Like, we would play downstairs probably until like, anybody who've ever been to our basement in our old house, like, we had a large, long basement.
We roller skating in the basement.
Roller skating like we at the rink. Like, we were just doing anything, like beauty shops, daycares. And there was nobody but us two.
Just like, us. We'd take a break, go eat, come right back to it. Take a nap, downstairs. Right back to it.
And now times has changed. It's like, we still have this moment, like, I'm doing your hair, or you doing my nails or my lashes, like, whatever the case may be.
You trying to be funny.
She's very pretty, okay?
That is not true. I just don't know how to braid right or do hair.
Deja is very passenger princess, baby. And we unbreaking that, okay? Because I'm
It's
not
nothing
it.
wrong with being a passenger
She don't
princess.
drive.
I do
oh
drive.
my God. Don't get us started on
I
driving.
drove last night.
My car. My car. Like, the girl don't, babe, that's my fault. Like, I take responsibility. I did everything for her, like, girl. But no, this has been a really good episode.
Yes.
I hope you guys got some laughs, and I pray for anybody who's just struggling in their relationship with their siblings, whether it be your brother or whether it be your sister, whether it be your cousins or just even your current friendships. I pray that like God shines a light that it's possible to repair your friendships or your relationships if they are broken. But then if you do fall in the lines where you're in a healthy relationship, don't take it for granted. Yeah. Because some people don't have their siblings or some people are only child and we don't know what that feels like. So I pray that you have a community around you that doesn't make you feel like you've lost anything and you've only gained something great from it. So I hope this was an amazing episode. This was a fun episode.
I was your first guest.
I don't know if she'll be back. We'll see.
It's okay.
I'm just joking. She may be back. Y'all gonna be
Thanks
tired
for having me.
Because if I keep having it, y'all gonna be tired of seeing her. But no. This is a really good episode. I thank y'all so much for staying tuned. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Remember that you can find the podcast on YouTube. You can also find the podcast now on Apple Podcasts. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. I love you guys lots. I will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.